The fatal miscalculation. In the vast expanse of the Milky Way, where countless civilizations rose and fell like cosmic tides, the Galactic Alliance of sovereign species reigned supreme. Comprising over 3,000 advanced civilizations, they considered themselves the pinnacle of evolution, masters of technology, diplomacy, and warfare. For 15 millennia, they had catalogued, analyzed, and occasionally subjugated every new species they encountered, meticulously documenting their findings in the Great Archive. Near the bottom of their elaborate hierarchy sat humanity, a curious bipedal species from a seemingly unremarkable blue planet. Humans had achieved faster-than-light travel barely 4 centuries ago, making them infants by galactic standards. The Alliance's official assessment labeled them as moderately interesting primates with concerning territorial behaviors and primitive defensive capabilities. What perplexed the Alliance's senior members wasn't humanity's rapid technological advancement. Many species experienced growth spurts before plateauing into comfortable mediocrity. No, what confused them was the strange respect humans commanded despite their junior status. Even the notoriously aggressive Zeth-Kar maintained careful distance from human-controlled regions. Another report from the Border Patrol, Fleet Commander Dravanyar announced, sliding a data crystal across the polished table of the Alliance Council chamber. The humans have established yet another restricted zone, in the Orion sector. High Chancellor Elarath, the ancient Quarian who had led the Alliance for 3 centuries, waved a dismissive tentacle. More of their territorial posturing. They claim half the sectors they can barely populate. Perhaps, Admiral Vexlor of the Navarite Empire interjected, his scaled skin shimmering under the chamber's lights. But our intelligence suggests these restricted zones hold significant strategic value. The humans guard them with remarkable vigilance. Their primitive attachment to specific territories is well documented, remarked Science Director Thalora, her holographic form flickering slightly. They designate countless regions as hallowed ground or sacred sites based on superstitious beliefs. Admiral Vexlor's compound eyes narrowed. The Epsilon colony on Navera Prime lies just beyond human territory. Rich in quantum crystals, ideally positioned for our expansion and suspiciously close to one of these human battlefields. You're not seriously considering. Chancellor Elarath began. A tactical acquisition, Vexlor finished smoothly. The humans are overextended. Their nearest fleet is 3 days away at maximum jump speed. We could establish presence before they mobilize an effective response. The chamber grew silent. It was Science Director Thalora who finally spoke. Admiral, our Xenocultural Division has repeatedly cautioned against intrusion into human battlefield zones. Their ambassador explicitly warned. Their ambassador, Vexlor interrupted, speaks of ancient wars and honored dead. Primitive superstition wrapped in diplomatic language. I've reviewed the scans personally. These battlefields are merely empty stretches of terrain marked with primitive monuments. The Zeth-Kar advise extreme caution, warned General Krev, the most decorated military mind in the Alliance. The Zeth-Kar, Vexlor replied with barely concealed contempt, have grown soft. I propose a measured acquisition. My battle group will establish a presence near the human colony, then negotiate from a position of strength. Should they resist, we'll demonstrate our technological superiority. Chancellor Elarath's expression remained unreadable as he considered the proposal. After a moment of contemplation, he nodded. Proceed with caution, Admiral. No direct confrontation unless absolutely necessary. 3 standard cycles later, Admiral Vexlor stood on the command deck of the Indomitable, flagship of the Navarite 7th Fleet. 16 warships dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Nebulan system, their scanners immediately sweeping the area. Status report, Vexlor commanded, his voice crisp with anticipation. Human colony detected on Nebulan 4, reported Lieutenant Commander Jaxer. Approximately 40,000 colonists. Minimal orbital defenses. Our sensors are also detecting the battlefield zone they've marked. It occupies nearly 30% of the northern continent. Curious placement for a memorial, Vexlor mused, studying the tactical display. Right between their largest settlement and the richest mineral deposits. Sir, Communication Officer Mira interrupted, we're receiving a transmission from the colony. On screen. The view screen flickered to life, revealing a stern-faced human male in a simple gray uniform. This is Governor Elijah Donovan of Nebulan Colony. You have entered Terran Alliance space without authorization. State your purpose immediately. Vexlor stepped forward, assuming the posture of Navarite diplomacy. Governor Donovan, I am Admiral Vexlor of the Galactic Alliance. We've detected significant quantum crystal deposits in your system that are vital to galactic stability. We propose a joint mining operation. The human's expression didn't change. Admiral, your fleet formation suggests more than a mining expedition. Furthermore, your projected course will take you directly over the Northern Memorial battlefield. That area is strictly prohibited to all non-human vessels under Terran Defense Protocol 14b. Rest assured, Governor, Vexlor replied smoothly, we have no intention of disturbing your cultural sites. Our scans indicate the most efficient landing zone happens to be adjacent to this memorial area. We'll maintain a respectful distance. Donovan's eyes narrowed. Admiral, this is not a request. The memorial battlefield is absolutely restricted space. Any approach within 10 kilometers will be considered a hostile act. Governor, Vexlor's tone hardened slightly, surely we can reach a reasonable accommodation. Your monument stones and empty fields pose no obstacle to our operations. We'll ensure nothing is disturbed. The human's face transformed, not with anger as Vexlor expected, but with a strange expression of resigned determination. You've been warned, Admiral. For the record, we attempted to prevent this. Nebulan Colony out. As the transmission ended, Lieutenant Jaxer turned to Vexlor. Sir, they're activating some kind of planetary defense system. Energy readings from the battlefield zone are unusual. Primitive intimidation tactics, Vexlor dismissed. Prepare landing craft. We'll establish a base camp at these coordinates, 3 kilometers from their precious battlefield. Admiral, Science Officer Tellin interjected, I'm detecting quantum fluctuations from the battlefield markers. These readings are consistent with advanced entanglement technology, not memorial stones. Impossible, Vexlor snapped. Our intelligence indicates humans lack this level of quantum manipulation. They're bluffing. Sir, Commander Jaxer's voice had taken on an edge of concern, the human vessels are retreating from the colony. They appear to be evacuating. For the first time, a flicker of doubt crossed Vexlor's mind. Why would they abandon their colony? The answer came moments later as the first Navarite landing craft breached the 10-kilometer perimeter around the battlefield. What happened next would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for centuries. The entire battlefield, all 300 square kilometers of it, illuminated with a blue-white lattice of energy that shot skyward. Within microseconds, intricate patterns formed within the energy field, creating what appeared to be quantum entanglement matrices of unimaginable complexity. What in the 7 moons is that? Vexlor gasped, his professional demeanor shattering. Sir! Science Officer Tellin shouted, each marker in the field is a quantum anchor. They're not memorials, they're nodes in a massive defense grid. On the tactical display, they watched in horror as their lead landing craft simply disappeared, not exploded, not disintegrated, just vanished from existence as though it had never been. The quantum field pulsed once, then expanded outward with terrifying precision. Emergency retreat. Vexlor ordered, finally grasping the magnitude of his error. All vessels, immediate withdrawal. But it was too late. One by one, the landing craft that had breached the perimeter blinked out of reality, removed from the universe with surgical precision. The Indomitable shuddered as the quantum field reached upward, grasping at the fleet in orbit. "Sir, we're receiving another transmission from the surface," Communication Officer Mira announced, her voice barely steady. Governor Donovan's face appeared once more on the view screen. "Admiral Vex Lore, what you're witnessing is a Class 3 quantum displacement field. Each marker in our primitive monument is actually a node in humanity's defensive network. Your vessels haven't been destroyed, they've been relocated to a pocket dimension." This is impossible," Vex Lore stammered. "Why would you use your war dead for defense systems?" The human's expression softened slightly. "Who better to entrust with the protection of the living than those who already gave everything for them? Every human soldier who falls in battle knows they will continue to serve as guardians. Each marker contains quantum-entangled neural patterns preserved at the moment of death, creating a self-sustaining defense network impossible to replicate or hack." As the full implications sank in, Admiral Vex Lore realized with dawning horror that humans hadn't colonized the galaxy with just their living population. Every human settlement was protected by the quantum signatures of generations of their fallen warriors, all linked in a vast defensive network spanning human space. "The Alliance will hear of this deception," Vex Lore finally managed. Governor Donovan sighed. "It wasn't deception, Admiral. We tried to warn you. We always do." The reckoning. The cavernous chamber of the Galactic Alliance High Council had never felt so silent. Normally filled with the ambient sounds of 1,000 diplomatic communications, today it was a vacuum of shocked disbelief as Admiral Vex Lore's report concluded. His once proud posture was diminished, scales dulled from stress and lack of sleep. 7 vessels lost, he repeated, his voice hollow. 3,422 Navarite warriors, vanished. Not dead. Worse. Displaced to a dimension we cannot access. High Chancellor Elaratha's ancient face had aged another century in the past week. And the humans' response? "They've established a quarantine zone around the Nebulan system," General Krev answered when Vex Lore seemed unable to continue. "They're permitting extraction of our remaining vessels but have formally declared the entire sector a restricted military zone." Science Director Thalora's hologram flickered with agitation. "This technology defies our understanding of quantum mechanics. Each battlefield marker contained neural patterns preserved at the moment of death, creating a self-sustaining defense network. The soldiers' final thoughts, their determination to protect, somehow harnessed as an energy source. So these battlefields," Chancellor Elarath struggled to comprehend, "they aren't merely memorials or burial grounds. They're active defense installations," General Krev finished grimly. "Powered by the neural echoes of their fallen warriors. The ultimate sacrifice transformed into the ultimate defense." The council chamber doors parted, admitting a slender, silver-robed figure. Ambassador Jorix, the Alliance's senior diplomat to human territories, approached the central table with uncharacteristic weariness. "The Terran Alliance has dispatched a representative," he announced. "Ambassador Talia Reed requests an audience to discuss terms." Chancellor Elarath straightened, his 7-fingered hands folding into the formal posture of diplomatic reception. "Bring her in." The human who entered was not what most counselors expected. No power armor, no military uniform, merely a woman of average height with dark skin and silver-streaked hair, wearing simple diplomatic attire. Only her eyes betrayed something extraordinary, deep brown orbs that held the weight of centuries. "Chancellor Elarath," she began without preamble, "I am Ambassador Talia Reed of the Terran Alliance. I come with both consequence and opportunity." "Ambassador Reed," Elarath responded with careful formality. "The Alliance regrets the misunderstanding that led to this incident." A tight smile crossed Reed's face. "Not a misunderstanding, Chancellor. A deliberate disregard for clearly communicated boundaries." Admiral Vex Lore's scales flushed with color. "Your boundaries were unclear. You spoke of memorials and hallowed ground, not advanced weapons systems." Reed turned her gaze to the Admiral, and several council members were surprised to see not anger but genuine sorrow in her expression. "Admiral, We have learned through bitter experience that advanced species often dismiss what they perceive as primitive sentimentality. When we explained that our battlefields contain our honored dead who still protect us, we were speaking literal truth. The quantum entanglement fields are powered by the neural echoes of those who died defending humanity. She produced a small device that projected a three-dimensional star map of human territory. Scattered throughout were glowing red points, thousands of them. Each point represents a battlefield where humans fought and died. Each is now a node in our defensive network. This is not a weapons program we developed, Chancellor, it is the natural evolution of our approach to warfare. Science Director Laura leaned forward, professional curiosity momentarily overriding diplomatic tension. Natural evolution. You mean this technology emerged spontaneously? Reed nodded. In a manner of speaking. During Earth's third global conflict, approximately 400 years ago, we discovered that the neural patterns of soldiers who died with intense focus on protecting others created quantum echoes. These echoes persisted, interfering with certain equipment. What began as a scientific curiosity evolved into understanding, our dead were still trying to protect us. The council chamber remained absolutely silent as she continued. Instead of dismissing this as superstition, our scientists investigated. They found that these neural patterns could be preserved at the moment of death, creating quantum anchors. Each fallen soldier became a node in what eventually grew into our planetary defense system. But the power requirements, Laura objected. Sustaining quantum fields of that magnitude would require. Nothing, Reed interrupted. The fields are self-sustaining. The quantum entanglement between the preserved neural patterns creates a perpetual energy loop. Our dead power their own defense grid, fueled by the same determination that led them to sacrifice their lives. Admiral Vexlor's composure finally shattered. What happens to those taken by these fields? Our people, where are they? For the first time, Reed's expression softened with genuine compassion. They exist in a pocket dimension created by the quantum displacement. Time passes differently there. To them, only moments have transpired. Can they be retrieved? Chancellor Ellerath asked, hope flickering briefly. Yes, Reed replied. But not without cost. The Terran Alliance proposes the following terms. First, formal recognition of all human territories and battlefields as sovereign space. Second, a non-aggression pact lasting no less than 500 standard years. Third, technology exchange focused on medical and agricultural advancements. And in return? General Krev asked. We will deactivate the displacement field and return your people, unharmed and experiencing only minimal temporal disorientation. Chancellor Ellerath's eyes narrowed. You haven't mentioned reparations for your deception. Reed's expression hardened again. There was no deception, Chancellor. For centuries, we have explicitly stated that our battlefields contain our honored dead who continue to protect us. That you chose to interpret this as primitive superstition rather than technological fact is not our responsibility. The silence that followed was deafening. We will need time to consider these terms, Ellerath finally said. Of course, Reed nodded. But understand, every day in our dimension equals approximately 3 minutes in the displacement field. Your people are safe, but the psychological impact of retrieval after prolonged dimensional displacement increases exponentially with time. As Ambassador Reed departed, the council erupted into heated debate. It was General Krev who finally silenced the chamber with a single, pounding strike of his ceremonial staff. The humans have been telling us the truth all along, he said quietly. We just refuse to hear it. Our xenocultural studies dismissed their battlefield reverence as primitive ancestor worship. Our military intelligence categorized their warnings as diplomatic posturing. We saw what we expected to see, a young, unsophisticated species clinging to superstition. A mistake we shall not repeat, Chancellor Ellerath conceded. 3 days later, Ambassador Reed returned to find a subdued council chamber. The formal treaty was signed with uncharacteristic speed, each council member sensing the paradigm shift this revelation represented. As the ceremonial confirmation completed, Reed approached Admiral Vexlor privately. "Your people will be returned tomorrow. They'll need psychological support. To them, only minutes have passed." Vexlor's compound eyes studied her with new understanding. "You could have used this as a weapon of mass destruction. Why create a displacement field instead?" Reed's expression grew distant. "Humanity fought 3 global wars before reaching the stars, Admiral. We learned that killing creates only temporary victories. But when you preserve life while demonstrating absolute defensive capability, you create the foundation for lasting peace." She handed him a small data crystal. "This contains coordinates for every battlefield in human space. Not as a threat, but as a courtesy. We've never hidden our defenses, we've just described them in terms that reflected their true nature." As the Admiral accepted the crystal, Reed added softly, "Every marker in those fields represents a human who died believing that their sacrifice would protect future generations. In the most literal sense, they continue to fulfill that purpose." Later, as the Alliance fleet departed, a junior science officer approached Admiral Vexlor on the observation deck. "Sir, I've been analyzing the human quantum technology. It's remarkable. Their entire defensive doctrine is built around preservation rather than destruction." Vexlor nodded, his gaze fixed on the slowly receding image of Earth in the view screen. "Do you know what troubles me most, Lieutenant? Not the technology itself, but what it reveals about humanity." "Sir. We encountered a species whose fallen warriors continue to protect them after death, through sheer determination converted to quantum energy. A species whose every battlefield becomes a fortress, not through superior weaponry, but through the preserved will of those who died there." The Admiral's scales shifted to the deep blue of profound realization. "And we dismissed them as primitives because they spoke of their dead with reverence rather than lecturing us about quantum mechanics." As the Navarite fleet entered hyperspace, leaving human territory behind, Admiral Vexlor made a personal log entry that would eventually become standard teaching in the Alliance's diplomatic corps. "When a human tells you their dead still protect them, do not search for metaphor or superstition. They are stating a technological fact wrapped in emotional truth. They honor their fallen not merely through ceremony but by allowing them to continue their chosen purpose. Perhaps that is a form of immortality we should envy rather than dismiss." Throughout the Galactic Alliance, battle plans were redrawn, diplomatic protocols revised, and for the first time in 15 millennia, the xenocultural division began approaching primitive beliefs with newfound respect. For if humans had woven quantum technology into their cultural practices so seamlessly that advanced civilizations mistook it for superstition, what other wonders and dangers might be hiding in plain sight among the stars? The once dismissive entry about humanity in the Great Archive was quietly updated, approach with respect and absolute honesty. They have been telling us the truth all along. We just weren't listening.